Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Power. He loved it. He took it raw in big gulpfuls. He liked the taste, the way it mixed with the bourbon and the sin in his blood.
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio, the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday. I'm Branden.
And I'm Lewis.
And we are here to talk about movies. Each week, Lewis and I alternate picking a film for both of us to watch and discuss. Today, I picked the film from 1957, A Face in the Crowd, starring Andy Griffith, Patricia, Neal, and directed by Elia Kazan. I almost said O'Neal. It was like going to roll off the tongue better.
Yeah.
This movie, Lewis has seen it before, but this was my first time watching it, and Lewis gave me the go-ahead to pick it anyways, because it's a great film, as I could tell after the first viewing. I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show and have been interested also in Elia Kazan for a long time because of his work with Marlon Brando and his work as like a method actor's director. So I've seen a couple of his films, but this one was the first time for me. Had a great experience watching it for the first time, but we're going to get into that here in a little while. Of course, stay tuned till the end of the episode if you want to hear what we're going to be watching next week, and that way you can have a whole week to watch the film and catch up with us before we talk about it next Sunday. We'd like to take a little bit of time to say thank you to everybody who has been with us, whether it's just been a couple of episodes or this is your first episode, whatever it may be, or all the episodes. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you being here. You can, of course, subscribe to us on any podcast platform or any of our social media channels at Film Church Radio. We have a couple of extra things on our YouTube channel if you want to go check those out. And, you know, right now we're not making any money on this podcast, but we'd like to do that at some point. So we just ask that if you like this podcast, tell one person about it this week. Just one.
I like that.
Even if you don't like it, be like, I hate this podcast. Film Church Radio, it sucks. They have Instagram. This is their Instagram account. Just spread the hate. All right, before we get into the movie this week, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been watching this week, other than A Face in the Crowd. So, Lewis, what have you been watching?
Yeah, I mean, so Facing the Crowd obviously was the one that has been the majority of this week. I'm excited to talk about it. But I watched, so Criterion Sale's going on right now. I mentioned it last week. So there's been a few pickups recently that I've kind of found time to watch. The first was In the Heat of the Night. Sidney Poitier, I know that we talked about him on our Lilies of the Field episode a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, he passed away, about a year ago now, probably, reaching that point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Or was it the beginning of this year? Time, I can't tell anymore.
I think it was the beginning of this year, you know.
Yeah, I think that's why we did it.
It was the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
So it's a film that I've never seen before. And, you know, I knew of it. I knew its significance in film history. So when Criterion put it out, this was on my pick-up list. So I picked it up, watched it the other day, and I really enjoyed it. You know, it's a really great representation of how the climate was at that time, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sidney Poitier is amazing. All his lines are delivered so well, and he's, you know, it's not an easy role to play. I think it could have slipped into kind of farce at times and a little bit, I don't know. It tread that fine line between being progressive and, you know, not being awful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, being progressive, but still being something that a mass audience would
dip
their toes in.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the Rod Steiger character as well. I know that he's another person that we've talked about.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rod Steiger, we talked about in our Fistful of Dollars episode.
Yeah, I'm surprised
or
to see him.
Fistful of Dynamite, sorry.
Yeah. Surprised to see him not, in any kind of really deep makeup for once. Yeah. So it was a nice change of pace. And I mean, he's really good in it. I think everybody is. And the murder mystery at the heart of it was interesting as well. It kind of ticked all the boxes. Yeah. So I'm glad that I watched it. And then I've been finally watching the Apu trilogy. It's something that I've had on my shelf for a long time and just trying to carve out the time to watch 3 films. For anyone that's not listening, there are lots of cineasts and people that like film talk about this as the best trilogy ever made. It's from India, from the 50s. I think the last one might be 59 or early 60s. Directed by Satyajit Ray, who basically started his career with the first film in this trilogy. Only meant for it to be one, and then liked the character so much that he progressed it into a second and third following the title character Apu through his boyhood, adolescence, and then adulthood. Yeah. So the first one is Patha Panchali, which is Apu as a young boy, basically growing up in an impoverished area of India, and it's just a fascinating look at a different culture and family, and it was really, really good. I was expecting it to be good, but it was really touching, and I don't know how to properly describe other than just some of the performances in it were just wonderful. It was great, and then I really enjoyed that, so I watched the second one the next day, Aparajito. I might be butchering these titles a little bit, and that was,
it's all good.
Again, it was just as good. It kind of followed on the same kind of themes, and I don't know, it really got to me. It was told on such a human level. Yeah. But just an area that I've never seen before. And both of them were just absolutely beautiful to look at, beautifully directed, and the mother of the film, Apu's mother, played by, let me just pull up her name, Karuna Banerjee, is just phenomenal. It's one of the best performances I've seen for a long time in both films. Yeah, in both of the films that I've watched. Yeah. Really moving, really. Her character was complex. It wasn't necessarily one-dimensional, but she did it so well. And I was really hoping that I could get the third one watched before we talked, so I could give like an overview of the whole trilogy. Yeah. But that's going to be the next on my list. So next week, we'll see if he sticks the landing.
Sweet.
So to speak.
That sounds exciting, man. It sounds like there's some films I need to watch here.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them are on the Letterboxd top 250.
Wow.
I think with the third one being the highest at number... I've got it in front of me. I'm just scrolling through. Number 54.
I mean, you've got to like it if the third one is the highest.
This is what I'm saying, and I'm so excited. The first one is number 90, and I love the first one. So I am cool. I'm ready to be moved and elated, and like we said last week, cinema is so good at showing you things that you would never experience. Yeah, for better or for worse. And this is it's just so great to get lost in someone else's culture.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's great. I'd recommend it to everybody.
Sweet.
What have you been watching?
So I haven't watched too much, but I mean, I've been catching up on some films. I watched the original Top Gun from 1986, which I always thought it was like early 90s, but
mid 80s.
Yeah, mid 80s. A lot of people said it's not great, which it just didn't seem as bad as I thought it would be. Okay. I mean, it was fine, you know. it wasn't the greatest film ever, but I didn't like hate it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The music was good. I don't know.
I feel like
it's like
it dwindles a little bit. There's no real
Yeah.
point to the end.
Yeah.
You know.
There's no like real plot.
Yeah.
Much of one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more of maybe just like a hangout movie.
Yeah.
For pilots.
Dudes.
For dudes. But yeah, I mean, I still haven't watched the new one, you know, and I wasn't going to watch it, but I looked it up on the other day and it was on Prime, so I was like, I'll just go ahead and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was fine. Whatever. I'll see the new one.
Did my story of my university roommate ruin it for you at all?
I mean, not really. I wasn't really that emotionally invested in any of the characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, oh my gosh. Goose's wife.
Meg Ryan.
Yeah, she's like, she's so good in everything, dude.
Mm-hmm.
She just like explodes, and she's just like barely in the movie.
Yeah, there's a point in the new one where they show a picture of her, and I'd forgotten that she was in it. I was like, oh yeah, it's Meg Ryan.
But then
That's
she
crazy.
never comes in.
No, spoiler.
But
yeah, she's not in it.
I want my
I don't know
money
what
back.
Meg Ryan's doing now, though. I feel like she kind of
disappeared, retired, or something.
Yeah.
I mean, her son, her and Kurt Russell's son is the new, well, not the new Captain America, but evil Captain America.
Mm. Oh, that's him. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wyatt Russell.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
I
also
didn't know
in.
that together.
He's also in Linklater's movie. Everybody Wants Some.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in that movie.
Sweet.
He's in some good movies.
Yeah.
He's a good actor. He was in. He was also in an episode of. It's taking me too long to think of everything. Black Mirror. He's in a Black Mirror episode.
Okay.
Anyway, he looks better with a beard. Moving on. I rewatched Annie from 1982, which, in my opinion, is the only Annie that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up watching this movie. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
Dude,
we had an old VHS that we used to, put on every now and again.
Yeah, it's so good, dude. And like, I don't know of a better character than Carol Burnett as Miss Hannigan.
Oh,
She's
really?
just incredible. I love it. And then Tim Curry, of course, is in it.
Yeah.
All the music just brings back so much happiness and nostalgia. Like riding with my grandma in the car and just like singing Tomorrow, you know.
Yeah. See, I think for us, our family, it was more Oliver. We seemed to have like Oliver and Annie.
Yeah.
You know, the battle of the orphans. Oliver always seemed to be the one that we watched as kids, me and my sister. So
more, yeah.
Yeah. There's gotta pick a pocket or two. That was like our Tomorrow.
Yeah. I haven't watched, I mean, I know I've seen it. I haven't watched it too much. I'll have to go back and watch that one.
It's one of those films that I'm kind of waiting to go back to. I think there's so much like nostalgia attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched it for such a long time.
Yeah.
You know, that I don't know how I would feel going back to watch it again.
Yeah. I go back to Annie every couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
I'm just looking up who plays Nancy in Oliver. I can't remember what her name was, but I can remember just having the biggest crush on her.
Oh, I did finish Stranger Things.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that last episode was a bit too long.
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
But, you know.
But I mean, it was... I didn't bother me as far as the length. But I mean, it's a short season. Like all these seasons are way shorter than seasons used to be before they were streaming. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
that's
Lost is like hour-long episodes, and there's like 23 a season, and it's like, God. It's like 3 seasons of Lost is like more than all of Breaking Bad. You know, it's like, well, Breaking Bad was traditional TV too, but it was still shorter seasons.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, you're talking to someone that comes from England, where sitcoms last 6 episodes a season.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I know about short seasons.
Yeah. Why are we just figuring this out in America?
It's quantity over quality here, Branden, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few other shows that I've been watching. Righteous Gemstones I started, which is just hilarious. It's the greatest.
Yeah.
But still pretty new into it. I've only watched like 5 episodes or so. But yeah, I mean, other than that stuff, did go see Thor last night, Love and Thunder, which I know you've seen it.
Yes.
So we'll do our little review now for everybody listening. If you haven't seen it, plug your ears or skip forward until we get to the main course, Face in the Crowd.
We'll try and steer clear of spoilers, I think.
Okay. That sounds good.
Just because, you know.
I'll beep it out if we don't.
Yeah.
That's what I did with that other episode.
Yeah, that's true.
I put a beep in there. So I liked it more than you.
Yeah.
Which I know you gave it like 2.5 stars. I gave it 4.
Thor.
I didn't like it as much. I gave it Thor. I didn't like it as much as Ragnarok.
No.
But nothing really bothered me too much in the film. I mean, some of the acting was a little weird. But I think this will be a better rewatch than like the new Doctor Strange.
Okay.
And I think I was listening to a few different things today. Listened to the Fat Man Beyond podcast with Kevin Smith, and him and Mark Bernard were talking about it. And I think I realized like what it is that makes this movie better than Doctor Strange. Like they were talking about how like these films, like these Phase 4 films they're leaning more towards auteur directors, like trying to give directors a voice within these films, which I kind of agree with. And like what you and I talked about with Doctor Strange was like, there's a lot of Sam Raimi there that to love about the Multiverse of Madness. But then it's like trying to fit into this story that it needs to fit into, and it's like the MCU stuff is the negative side now, like trying to fit it into this wider universe, whereas like all the Sam Raimi auteur stuff is good. And I feel like it's the same with this film, but with Love and Thunder, Taika Waititi, well, first of all, I think he wrote it, but also there's more scenes with just the characters. Yeah. And I think that's where it shines most is when it's just the characters talking and just character stuff. It's really good because that's like the director's voice coming through. Yeah. Whereas like Doctor Strange didn't have as much of that stuff. It had a bigger plot that it needed to fit into, so there wasn't as much room for him to like do the Sam Raimi thing, Yeah. So.
And I think that's where my problems lie now with the MCU is that this phase especially we had Chloe Zhao who did Nomadland, who did the Eternals. Yeah. It didn't seem to be a like I could not have told you that was directed by Chloe Zhao. If you had shown me that film, there was no trace. We've had Sam Raimi, and now Taika again, and I know that there's the director of the remake of Candyman, for example, is signed on, and she's doing I think the Marvels. Like the movie later. I think they're filming it right now, potentially. But my just worry is that all these directors are just going through the machine. There's any originality is just being gobbled up and used, just to sell or just to attach it to you make them seem a bit more prestigious, I
Yeah.
guess. And this is the thing. I mean, I'd seen a lot of stuff about Thor, like, it's a comedy, so don't go in expecting it to be, life changing. It's like, it can be a comedy. Like, these films can be whatever you want them to be. Like, you don't have to downplay it by saying it's a comedy.
Yeah.
And
well, and it also, it's like, where is there going to be any room for new directors at this point?
Yeah.
Like any directors that haven't had their chance yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Are they just going to be snatching up all these big names to do these Marvel movies? And because it's like, where did the Russo brothers come from? Like, what did they do before Civil War? Or
now they're
not
doing
Civil War. I think they did
Winter Soldier first.
Yeah, Winter Soldier first. And the same with those writers. It's like the writers of those movies that worked with the Russo brothers, they didn't come out of nowhere, but it's not like they had done anything that was like groundbreaking for their careers yet,
Yeah. And there's the stats that I showed you where, like, already in phase 4, we haven't even completed it, and there's 50 hours of content.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, the CGI, you look on Twitter and that's all people are talking about is how wonky the CGI for everything looks at the moment.
Yeah.
And it just feels rushed. There just doesn't seem to be, they're just, and that potentially might be because of COVID, I might be being a bit harsh here. But
everything piled up and then,
trying to get it out before a deadline maybe. But I just feel I'm just, take your time, slow it down. Like, let's have, I don't know, just better quality films, because it seems to me like everything is just the same basic plot, just with different jokes.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of Thor and Love and Thunder I found worked really well, but I'm just a bit cold at the moment. I mean, the Miss Marvel show, I don't even know, is that it is, right?
Miss Marvel,
yeah. I've only watched the first episode.
Yeah.
And it's like all of them are out. And it's just, and it's not to do with the quality of the show, because the first episode I enjoyed, I don't think I can be bothered to go through it,
Yeah.
I
feel like with that show and some of their shows, they need to just drop all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like something like Kenobi, you can get away with doing one a week. Like, but.
And that's my worry for Star Wars, is because when they announce all that stuff, it's like, this is so exciting. And now that it's coming, I'm just like, I just want, like, Mandalorian, As much as I enjoyed Obi-Wan and stuff like that, I don't know. I just, they're just, it's just the bottom line, isn't it? It's just, let's ring this for as much money as possible.
But I mean, it's also Disney, man. It's like, it's just such a big giant, and they put all their money into Disney Plus now, and they've got to get content out, or
people aren't going to subscribe. And I know that Marvel have got a slot or a place in the hall at Comic-Con, so I'm ready for like a loose announcement of the next 5 years. So it's gonna, I mean, there's no slowing it down. I just, like, with Endgame, Infinity War, we're leading up to something. And it just feels a bit aimless now. And I don't think there's any stakes. Like, if somebody gets hurt, they're fine again in the next season.
That's the problem, too.
And I'm like, there's just, like, I don't fear for the characters anymore. When they went up against the God Butcher, I was like, I know what's going to happen. So, I don't know.
It was, I mean, it was, again, another kind of hangout movie in a lot of ways. It's like where it shined was just those characters talking. You know where it's going. But
and I was like really sour on Ragnarok the first time I saw it. I didn't like it very much at all. And then
really?
On rewatch, it like bumped up, when I think I let it settle a little bit. So maybe this will be the same. Maybe I just need a break. Because there's nothing now until, November?
I think Wakanda Forever.
I don't know.
Well, there's a show, but then Wakanda Forever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested to see where that's going to go. Because Black Panther was one of the films that felt different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But I mean, maybe just taking
same
a detox
director
for a while.
So,
yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I feel you. Somebody messaged me today and was like, why is Thor so bad? And I was just like, I mean, I liked it. And Doctor Strange wasn't. And I said I didn't, or I thought it was better than Doctor Strange. And they were like, oh yeah, I forgot about Doctor Strange already. It's like, it's been a couple of months. It's like
That's
easy.
the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody forgets Iron Man though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of our family, my dad and my sister loved it. Chelsea liked it. Me and my mum were a bit not as warm on it.
Yeah.
So I guess the majority are enjoying it, if that's any stats to go by. So.
Yeah, I was seeing a lot of negative press before I went and saw it. So it was
I think that's the thing. The negative always rises to the top.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what people have like problems with,
Yeah.
I'm just,
it felt very in the same vein as Thor Ragnarok. I think it's just that when Thor Ragnarok came, it was fresh, and now it's like we've already seen Thor Ragnarok, and
yeah, I know,
yeah. So I don't know,
yeah,
but all right, that's it on MCU stuff. You can unplug your ears.
Yeah, I'm sure we could talk about it for more time, but
yeah. What else is there to say?
True.
All right, folks. It's time for the feature presentation, A Face in the Crowd from 1957. The IMDb summarizes this film as a female radio reporter turns a folk-singing drifter into a powerful media star.
Yeah.
Like we said at the top of the show, Andy Griffith in his first feature film debut as Larry Lonesome Rhodes. Patricia Neal as Marcia Jeffries. And Walter Matthau as Mel Miller. And other people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like this was my first time seeing the film. I was pretty blown away, honestly. I mean, this is quite possibly one of the best films I've ever seen. And it's just, I watched it yesterday and it's just been like marinating in my mind for the last 24 hours. And there's so many things about it that are still relevant. They were ahead of its time. And I mean, it's just like Andy Griffith is just explosive. Like he's just incredible. Like he's infectious and like such a screen presence and just roars onto the screen. Like you don't know Andy Griffith unless you've seen this movie. And I grew up on the Andy Griffith Show. You know what I mean? But you did not.
No,
apparently.
I didn't.
You have never seen one episode. Have you ever seen Andy Griffith in anything other than this?
Nope. This was my only exposure to Andy Griffith.
Yeah. So tell me like the first time you saw this movie and where it sits in your mind up to now.
I mean, I feel like this film is one of those rare examples that after I finished watching it, I was like, I've just seen a classic of film that nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't people talking about this movie?
Yeah.
And there's obviously things with Kazan that we'll probably get into later as to why I think his filmography is not as celebrated today as it should be. But this is a stone cold classic. It's scarily relevant. It's wonderfully put together. The performances, I mean, you said Andy Griffith roaring onto the screen is the perfect way to put it. He is phenomenal in this film.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to shake Lonesome Rhodes from Andy Griffith in my mind.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's just such a complete portrayal of a person.
Yeah.
So I first saw this maybe 2 years ago, I bought the Criterion disc. It was kind of when I was kind of hoovering up all the Hollywood like classic titles that they were putting out.
Yeah.
And this was just happened to be one of them, and I own a few other Kazan films, so I was excited for one that I hadn't seen. And I wasn't really, I don't think I was expecting a lot, but I can remember at that point I was like, holy smokes, this is incredible. You know, it goes places that you don't really think it's going to go.
Yeah.
So when you were like, oh, I've bought it, I was like, please suggest it for FCX. I want to watch it. I want a reason to watch it again. And I also want to talk to someone about it. Because, you know, you'd look on YouTube and there's maybe 3 or 4 videos that aren't like a trailer about the people talking about it. It just doesn't seem to be acknowledged at all. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like it took a long time for it to become I don't know. It never, I guess it never has really become popular. Yeah. But it took a long time for it to even just
recognition.
Really, get a following again, you know, or at all, you know. Like it didn't do well when it first came out. Andy Griffith, I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray, and he talks about, I mean, this was his first movie. I mean, he was doing like Broadway theater.
Yeah.
And he was doing stand-up comedy. And he was pretty popular as a stand-up comic. They even mentioned, like one of the historians mentions that Elvis opened for Andy Griffith.
Wow.
Which is just kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But you know, Elia Kazan was kind of a method actor's director. Mm-hmm. So he was always encouraging the actors and characters to kind of mold together, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that he would tell people on set was like, if you really think it in your head, I'll be able to see it in your eyes through the camera. So he was always trying to get people into the mind of the character, and this character is, you know, just from the little bit I've learned about Andy Griffith from the behind the scenes stuff, is very, as far as where he starts, is very close to Andy Griffith, you know, being like a country boy, basically. Yeah. But then the character goes to this very dark place, right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Andy just had to go there. And he said that the movie took 3 months to film, but 4 months to recover from. And because it kind of bombed, I think he maybe just, you know, it's like if you put everything you have into something and then it's over.
Yeah.
Like, what do? You know, and especially if it's not like getting traction in the public eye. So you just move on, and then it just drifts into the distance. You know, it's only after being restored and like coming back into the public eye that we're even watching it now. You know, if it wasn't for the advancement in technology, this film probably would have been lost, you know. Mm-hmm. And I know it's in the Library of Congress. I don't know what year it actually went in, but I think it says on the IMDb trivia. I didn't put it on here, but you know, I don't know. I don't know why. It does need a resurgence though, because it's like it is so relevant in more ways than one. Like, you know, if you haven't seen this film, basically it's about this well, let me just kind of tell you my experience of watching the movie. Because, like, I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show, where Andy Griffith is, like, he's the sheriff of the town, the sheriff of this small town. And he's a very likable character. You know, he follows the law. You know, he arrests people when he needs to arrest people. He'll put the drunk in jail when he needs to put the drunk in jail. But he, like, brings them breakfast, you know.
Yeah.
Like, he treats people well, you know. It's like you go, like, for the drunk, going to the sheriff's hotel is like, I mean, hotel, but jail is like going to a hotel, mm-hmm. you know, for the drunk or whatever. So the first thing that caught my eye watching the movie was like this woman comes to this jail cell where all these men are in there, and she's like she brings like a tape recorder in. She's trying to record interesting conversations between people, and in the corner is the drunk, and it's Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, it's like growing up watching the Andy Griffith Show, it's like the coin is flipped.
Mm-hmm.
It's like now he's the drunk in jail. And you immediately see this other side of this personality that I've never seen before, you know. A big reason he was so popular in the show was also that like he's a single father.
Yeah.
In the Andy Griffith Show, like there's a lot of just wholesome stuff,
Father-son
like
bonding. Yeah.
Yeah, father-son bonding, and then also in the behind-the-scenes stuff, a lot of people were talking about how Andy Griffith was like their father figure for people who either didn't have fathers in their house or had like terrible fathers, abusive fathers, things like that. It was like they could turn on the Andy Griffith Show and every day that was like their dad.
Yeah.
And one of the historians pointed out that that's a show that has been that like since the show came out, it's been on TV every day since.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's a very big show. Back to the movie. The character, he gets caught just being genuine. Like he pulls out his guitar. He's not ready to be recorded yet. So the lady like sneaks the recorder into her purse or a basket or something. And he starts just singing and like being himself. And she sneakily records him, but she gets all this genuine stuff from him, right?
Yeah.
And immediately, like, you just kind of fall in love with the character. Like, that's what happened to me. Like, I was like, this guy is great. Like, this guy is, and it's Andy Griffith. It's like, I'm like, there, for me, there's just it's just like a warm blanket. You know what I mean? Like seeing him on screen. So I don't know, like, did you fall in love with the character immediately, or?
I think the point that I did, was kind of it was more in the radio station. So she records him, and then he leaves town, and they go running after him and say, you know, you did really well. Like the segment that she does on the radio is called "A Face in the Crowd," hence the title. Like the listeners really from this town really loved you. They want you to, like, basically want to offer you a chance to do a few hours every morning. Yeah. And it's, I think that the point that you like that you kind of, I don't know, that he catches you unawares is really when he's doing those radio shows in the morning. He's like eating the pie that all the listeners,
the housewives.
You see the housewives kind of being like, oh yeah, like he does he
gets us.
Yeah, it's like it's like, I love that scene where he's like, I think it's his first broadcast, and he's like, oh, the husbands never know like what the wives have to do in the day. They just come home and expect the dinner to be on the table and be in a bad mood because of what the boss said. And it's like an old couple sitting at the table, and the man gets up and he's like, well, dear, I've got to go to work. Yeah. And he's trying to shuffle out. I mean, you can, like, instantly the film kind of gives you that, you know, he is lovable in terms of, like, he knows how to, I don't know, talk to an audience or be relatable, you know. Because I think it would have been a really hard trick to pull if that wasn't believable. Yeah. To see him rise up the ranks as he does, and being like, I don't get it. I don't understand why people are finding this appealing. Yeah. You know, but it's the realness in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, that was the brilliance in the casting, was like seeing that, you know, Andy Griffith had a, you know, big stage presence when doing his stand-up and stuff. I think that was kind of the key ingredient, was being able to entertain a mass amount of people. And it's just infectious. Like you see it like go through the town. You see him connecting with the housewives, but then connecting with everyone else. And and then it just kind of snowballs. It gets bigger and bigger. But it is interesting how in the beginning it very much seems like he does want to help people. Like he wants to, I don't know, like there's not really, like he does the thing with the dogs where he sends the dogs to the sheriff's house as sort of like not sheriff, but the guy who's running for sheriff or whatever.
Yeah.
Or is it the sheriff? I don't know. But he sends the dogs to his house. He tells everybody to send their dogs to him as almost like a revenge because they have a fight the night before or whatever. But it doesn't really feel malicious.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It feels more of just like a funny prank, a harmless funny prank or whatever.
Yeah.
But the Marsha, is it Marsha? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Character kind of plants a seed in his ear in that scene of like, how does it feel to be able to like command a mass amount of people?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I guess I can do that. Huh. And then I think the next thing he does is like get all the kids to go to this like rich guy's pool, the like guy that owns the radio station. He like tells them they can go swim there. And it just seems like he's kind of a man of the people, you know, like it starts out like in a good place.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I definitely got that the first time. I think the second time watching it, there's a definite layer of like sinisterness underneath.
Yeah.
Everything, because you know where this film's going to go the second time. Like, you can just see when, you know, Marcia kind of drives up to try and stop him leaving town. Like, the only reason he's staying is so that he can go to bed with her.
Yeah, he did
just,
mention
like,
that.
Shakes his friend off. He's just like, okay, see you later, guy. You know?
Yeah. That was one of the things he mentioned in the movie is like that in his mind, like Kazan told him to be like, you're trying to get with her.
Yeah.
So like just show it in your eyes.
Yeah. And I think that's I mean, he does a good job because it's like, okay, it's a bit seedy, you know, which develops further as his character progresses. But yeah, there's definitely that, like, you know, you're never really sure if this is him personally or whether he's playing this character because that's the mass appeal. You know, maybe if he'd been in, like, if this had happened in New York, it wouldn't have been like wholesome country, you know, it would have been different.
Right.
And there's definitely that undertone, which I appreciated more this time because the first time you are sucked in by his personality. Yeah, by his charm and stuff. But this time there's much more under the surface, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And something I'll have to look out for watching it again. Because, yeah, for me, it was like a combination of growing up watching Andy Griffith and then seeing kind of him as this drunk, feeling a little sorry for him, and then just watching him kind of get better and better, get more and more money. Like you kind of are rooting for him, I guess, you know, which I was. And I didn't really expect to be doing that, you know, from what I knew about this movie. I kind of knew it was going to get dark towards the end, so I didn't expect to be rooting for him throughout the movie. But, you know, he ends up getting offered this role on the TV station, and then he doesn't want to do the ads. So he just kind of gives a big metaphorical middle finger to the advertisements.
Yeah.
Talk shit about him. And, you know, he thinks his career is over, but then he gets offered an even bigger TV spot at a bigger station. And for me, the change in the character seemed to be because I was like on board with him through all of that because I was like, yeah, fuck mattresses, and big corporations or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's like the Vitajex scene, where like the corporate people are like, there's like a doctor that's been studying this Vitajex pill, and he's like, you're just giving people sugar. Like, it's not, there's nothing in this. And
strike it from the record.
Yeah, they're like, they strike it from the record. He's like, the pill's not going to kill anybody, but it's like, it's essentially just like a sugar pill.
Yeah.
And then Lonesome Rhodes comes in, and they're like, we want you to sell this pill. And he's like, he comes up with the song on the spot. He's like on board. That's where like it switched for me, because I was like, okay, something just changed with this character here. Because like before he was like, didn't want to follow along, and now he's like all about it. So like what happened?
Yeah, it's that whole, I mean, we've seen it a million times in modern celebrity culture. It's that whole kind of sucking you in, like, I'm not going to be bought. I'm not someone that can be bought. So if I recommend a product, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, which isn't true. I don't think anybody that kind of promotes products uses it religiously.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe George Foreman. I mean, he put his name on it. But there's definitely, like, that Vitajex scene is one of my favorites. I love the progression of, and the subtleness of it, because it's obviously appealing to, like, the Viagra crowd, right? That's the kind of pill that they're trying to sell, is this kind of.
But this was like before Viagra. So like this whole idea of them selling this pill was like ahead of its time. Yeah.
They keep talking about energy, and there's like very attractive women. I love the bit with that person that's like, I got my husband a year's supply, and the bottle is like as big as the lamp. It's huge.
Yeah.
I love that bit. It's so funny. But yeah, it's just, it doesn't do anything. He's just using his celebrity to sell it. And it's it's just preying on people's insecurities. And I think that, again, as Lonesome Rhodes, you can see that he knows he's bought people's loyalty, and B, this is like payday. Like, he can exploit this.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens, he does.
Oh, Vitajex.
It's a good song.
Been singing it all day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But then, like, a little while after that, so then he's like kind of having this love affair with his, the lady that interviewed him.
Marsha,
Yeah, Marsha, Patricia, Neal character. And then she finds out that Lonesome Rhodes has a wife. She comes into the scene, and just like, it's a great scene. Like that, when the wife starts laughing, I was like, dear God. Because she just has the same like, ha, ha. Like, just explosive laughter. And then it's like, then it gets like real dark. Like, it starts getting real dark, like, because of the whole womanizer thing. Like, he's just a womanizer.
This is a pattern.
Yeah. And all of the rooting that I had been doing for the character starts getting broken down slowly, know?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's done in such a great way. I mean, I'm sure other people have had the same experience as me watching this, because of growing up with the Andy Griffith Show and like watching it in hindsight, which I'm sure helps with how good it is.
Yeah.
Now, but I mean, still, you enjoyed it a ton. But yeah, I mean, he just is a total dirtbag. Like, he tells Marsha that he's, gonna get his divorce fixed or whatever.
Yeah.
Reassures her and stuff, and then goes off and marries a 17-year-old girl.
Yep.
And they like is clearly portrayed as like a sexual predator.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't know until he arrives, and like the press already knows that he got married. She doesn't even know. And then there's like the next scene where I can't remember what happens, but Marsha's in the room, and when the scene ends, I think it was with her and the Walter Matthau character.
Yeah.
And when he leaves the room, she lets out like this sob that is just like devastating.
Yeah.
Like everything you need to know is like in that.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we're going to talk about her some more. Like her character, her acting was also incredible, like equally incredible. Everybody in this movie was great, but I mean, her and Andy Griffith were perfect. And I don't know like what all I've seen her in. Patricia Neal. I know that I've seen her most recently in Breakfast at Tiffany's. She plays like the older love interest in the film. But she also, besides that movie, feels very familiar. I'm not sure what else I might have seen her in, like maybe some TV shows or something, but she has this very almost like ominous presence.
Yeah, I think she's got such a wonderful face, because I don't know why I said it like that, because it's like homegrown and like homey, but it's also that touch of like, I know, film stardom, if that makes sense. You can tell that, like
classic Hollywood.
Yeah, like she's obviously like she plays the homespun kind of, girl really, really well, but there's also that touch of glamour there.
Yeah, I think when she got really interesting in this movie was when she is portrayed as having more money, and then she's like sitting in the bar with Walter Matthau, and it's like film noir looking, and she's just
gorgeous.
I can't remember. Yeah, but she's just like, I hate to use the word creepy, but there's something about her that's like kind of ominous or like dark. I don't know.
Femme fatale kind of.
Yeah, I
vibes.
guess.
Yeah.
But she's great.
Yeah, she is. I think that she plays that character really well. Because, like I said, with Andy Griffith, there's a lot where it could not have been believable. And it's the same with her. You need to believe that regardless of all this crazy things that he's done, she would still go back to him.
Yeah.
She needs to tread that line really closely in terms of, this is why I'm still attracted to him, is because he's so magnetic as a force.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah. I think what took this film over the top for me was not expecting to be so emotional, and like the not the very last scene, but basically like the climax of the movie, where Lonesome, he's doing his thing on TV. It's like the end of the show. They've been looking for the Marcia character. The scene before, Lonesome basically tries to come back to her, and she runs away from him because she realizes that she has created a monster. Yeah. There's all this other political stuff, like he becomes this kind of political figure or political influencer. He gets this, I guess it's like a businessman that's like running for something, and he endorses him or whatever. And there's like a hilarious scene where he's like talking with the political figure, and Lonesome Rhodes is like, "You need a new personality." And just like, oh my God, dude, that scene, like, and there's like all these other old men sitting around this political guy, and they're just like patting him on the shoulder, just like, oh, it's just games. We're just joking. We're just poking fun at you. Yeah. Like those little touches just like made that scene. But then, so when he's like closing out his show, it's the credits. So they've muted the the screen for the audiences that are watching the show, and it's just Lonesome standing around his co-stars, and he's talking, but he's talking shit about the audience, and the audience can't hear because it's muted.
Yeah.
And one of the tech guys is like, "Oh, if they could only hear what he was actually saying," and he like leaves, and the Marcia character just all of a sudden is like, "This is the moment.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to tear it all down. She created this monster, and only she can destroy it." And she turns on the mic and just like holds on to it, and like all these people run in and try to rip her off and stuff. But all of a sudden, Lonesome Rhodes is now broadcasting that he basically has duped the audience into believing whatever he says, and in an instant tears everything down. And what got me was like Marcia, like after that, after they rip her off, she just like breaks down and is crying and crying and crying. And you just, like, I related with her because it was like, because I loved Lonesome as much as she did. Like, I love Andy Griffith. I love this character and the person who I grew up watching, and to just see something so evil, something that you genuinely love be so evil. It really felt like she loved him. You know what I mean? Like, and I really didn't expect to just be like, to connect with that so much. You know what I mean?
I know. And that last scene, this kind of second to last scene, there's such a wonderful like closing and symmetry to that opening scene when she discovered him. It's like retribution. She's doing the one thing that she knows will kind of clear her in a way. So the film starts and she hides a microphone to hear him play, and it ends with her activating a hidden microphone so the audience can hear him again.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't even think about that.
And it's such like a full circle moment. Yeah. And it's kind of like, you can tell when she's crying, it's not just like, I've hurt someone that I obviously still have feelings for, but it's like, I've closed the chat, I've closed the book. That's the kind of the closure I needed personally to end, like, to get me out of this.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I don't necessarily think that she created him. I think that as a monster, Lonesome is already pretty much formed. He's just looking for that opportunity. But she gave him the opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and now she's taking it away again.
Yeah, but like you said, she's just doing what she did in the beginning and showing people what's genuinely there and what's genuinely being said, you know?
Yeah.
I think, that's beautiful. I didn't even think about that.
And I think that's why Kazan is so good, is that there's these touches throughout that just really, you know, that he doesn't have to say it. He doesn't have to necessarily kind of hit you over the head with it. Like the Vitajex stuff, it's obviously because I know that they spent a lot of time, him and Bud Schulberg, like around advertising people and stuff like that. And, you know, the thing they probably got from it is we target insecurities.
Yeah.
And they were like,
that's a good point.
Well, that's what the advert's going to be about, is insecurities. And like, who would you, if you were a man that was suffering from those kind of problems, you would trust this energetic, you know, magnetic force. Like we've seen it time and time again, you know?
Yeah.
So, he's wonderful at kind of nuance, I guess.
Yeah. What other films have you seen of Elia Kazan?
So obviously I've seen On the Waterfront. I've only seen it once when I was at school. I can't remember it massively.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. And I've watched A Streetcar Named Desire one or two times.
I love Streetcar Named Desire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched it for a few years, but I love it. I've seen East of Eden. Big fan of James Dean. So I've seen that. And then there's a film called Boomerang that he did with Dana Andrews, and I love Dana Andrews, like a really good film noir actor. And then I think it might be his first film, I'm not sure, but A Tree Grows in Brooklyn from 1945. And that film is heartbreaking. It's so good.
Really?
It's so good. Yeah. Like if that, let me just have a look and see if that is his first film. It is. To say that's your first film, it's so well crafted. You've got to see it.
Well, he's also a guy who came from theater, so
Yeah.
it's like I think he just transferred easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely need to watch all of his films. I have his biography. I haven't read it though. It's been sitting on the shelf, but I think it's maybe time.
Yeah.
Now that I've finished Leone.
And he worked with my favorite actor of all time, Robert Walker, in 1947.
Oh, he did?
He did. Yeah. He
Interesting.
The Sea of Grass, which I can't remember liking a lot when I watched it. But I mean, this film has really sparked that interest in watching more.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll have to go back and watch it again.
Robert Walker.
Yeah, dude.
Your long lost grandpappy.
Disclosure, he's definitely not. But yeah, just an actor that he was on Strangers on a Train. If any listeners don't quite know who he is, but for some reason I've just got this slight obsession with him. I think he's wonderful. So maybe one day I'll pick a Robert Walker film for us to look at.
Yeah, definitely we should. I mean, we should also do some films that we both love too, just to kind of
definitely
just talk about them. Like Strangers on a Train would be good.
I mean, when I was watching this, I was like, I cannot wait, because I just knew you were going to love it too. I don't think you could not love it.
Yeah.
It's so well crafted. The performances. I mean, Kazan, his work with actors is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
These performances from everyone is wonderful. And we haven't even talked about Walter Matthau. So
yeah, I was going to ask you. So Walter Matthau, I don't know why I said it like that. He's like, the name is more familiar than his face to me. So what should I know this guy from?
So he he did a lot of great comedy performances, pretty much. So, and that's really pigeonholing him, because I know he did a lot more. But he had a really fruitful partnership with Jack Lemmon. So they did The Odd Couple together.
Okay.
Where Matthau plays like a sports journalist. He's kind of messy and, smokes a lot, gambles, drinks. And Jack Lemmon is the more kind of done up, proper, a little bit prissy, and they kind of end up sharing an apartment. And that is really good. I mean, been imitated so many times.
Yeah.
And then he also did another few films with Lemmon, like The Fortune Cookie, directed by Billy Wilder, and a sequel to The Odd Couple as well.
Interesting.
But, he's kind of, every time he shows up, I'm like, oh, I love Walter Matthau, but I've never seen all of his films. There's the top ones that I've seen, but I haven't really done a deep dive. But I really like him in this. I think my one criticism from A Face in the Crowd is he's not utilized enough.
Yeah, yeah.
He just seems to be kind of like the voice of reason. Like, we're working for him, but we know that he's a jackass.
Yeah.
So, and his speech at the end is great, and just encapsulates stardom. So basically he says to Lonesome at the end, when he's kind of lost it. Nobody really wants to be around him. And he basically says, it's going to take time, but you'll go back on TV. You won't have the same numbers, but people forget. They love I forget the word he used, but like a resurgence. He loves to see people climb back out of the gutter.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good speech.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So what, obviously this film, it obviously is relevant, to today's culture, but there was a quote, I lost my place. There was a quote that said, where he says, "I'm not just an entertainer, I'm an influence, a wielder of opinion, a force." And it just made me think of like influencer culture, because like obviously this film is relevant to like celebrities, and like you've got like business people and political people and entertainers, or maybe just like business people and entertainers becoming political people.
Yeah.
And how in America all those things kind of mold into one, and the lines get blurred, to where it's all kind of the same thing now. But then also just like, influencer culture, where anybody can kind of be a lonesome road personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say about that? I don't know. I didn't make a good question there. But.
I mean, the first time I watched it was with Trump as president, and there was a real like scariness to it, just how relevant it still was.
Yeah.
You know, just someone taking their opportunity and just running with it. And then watching it this time with a little bit more distance from that time. I mean, it's different now, you know, and I think that's maybe where it's fallen down a little bit, because quite a lot of the like comparisons and times when people are talking about it is in relation to Trump, and it's hard to separate that, you know. But yeah, I think especially with the Vitajex, it's scary how that still relates to today. You know, we see celebrities' faces selling those products every single day. You know, I had an example, but it's because Amazon Prime days are happening right now. So special offers for Prime members and stuff like that. And I just was scrolling through, and they have influencers, quote unquote, on the Amazon app live streaming what they're buying. And I was like, why are we, like, where did we, I'm already on the website. I'm already having a look through stuff. Why have I got someone telling me to buy some skis? It's ridiculous.
It is crazy. It's if you do have any internet personality that you follow, I've been sucked into that, like where or podcasts that I listen to, like a podcast I really like listen to, when it gets to the ad, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a really cool thing, and then I subscribe, and I'm like, man, why did I spend that money? They get me sometimes, you know. It's weird. And especially the part where he's like tells the politician that he needs a new personality reminds me of Bo Burnham's Inside special, but also his Inside outtakes. Have you watched them yet?
Not yet.
On YouTube, he does this thing where he's like basically telling someone how to be an internet sensation.
Okay.
And he's like, you just got to be yourself, and you know, whatever. And he's like, unless yourself sucks, then in that case, be someone else, be someone completely different. And then he's like, and if that doesn't work, then do this. And he like makes this goofy face and starts like contorting his body and like doing just like the goofiest shit. But yeah, man, we're just in such a weird time.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird because it's like it was ahead of its time, but it was like being ridiculous.
Yeah.
But but we've gone beyond that now.
Yeah. And I think the thing that always amazes me is that this was a reaction to something very different to what we're going through. This was a reaction to the boom in television in the US. You know, less people went to the cinema, more things were coming on TV. And this was a reaction to people on TV basically being in people's houses, like every night. And like how they can influence people's decisions. But now it's like, it's phones. It's these people on our phones that keep telling us what to do. But the message is still exactly the same. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the sign of truly transcendent cinema, is that it doesn't matter what place you're from, what time, what color, this is relevant.
Right.
And still says something today that it's trying to say 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it's a class. It's a Stone Cold classic.
Yeah, man. And I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but I mean, speaking on the film's relevance and stuff, and why it never really caught traction, also was Kazan kind of took a hit in his career because of HUAC and the whole communist controversy. House of Un-American Activities Committee, which is just, it sounds like a joke to me. Like this, for people who don't know, like if you study film history, there's this time where HUAC, the House of Un-American Activities Committee, had all these hearings, and they were trying to find communists inside of Hollywood, and they were trying to get people to name names and stuff. And Kazan Kazan, I guess at one point was a communist, and then ended up naming names, and people were mad at him.
Same with Schulberg, the writer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, he did the same thing.
So this was after that, and I guess, I mean, he still made movies, so he wasn't exactly blacklisted, right?
No,
but
I mean, the fact that he named names meant that he wasn't blacklisted, but the people he named were, and I think that in Hollywood it was like a black mark against his name. I mean, there's incredible footage, honestly, of he received an honorary Oscar in the 90s, maybe. And it kind of, and it pans to the crowd, and there's people, standing applauding, and it cuts to other people, and they're just sitting, and they're not, no reaction, they're not applauding, they're not, they don't, arms folded.
And it's like, shows, 40 years later?
Yeah, just shows how disruptive and awful.
Yeah.
Like what he did. I mean, it was a witch hunt, basically, and it's the reason why Chaplin was exiled from the US. I mean, it's, and this movie again can be seen to be a representation of that. It's like, maybe this is his justification in terms of like, hey, these people that you are watching every day can influence you, and maybe it's not going to be politically, communism and stuff, but
well, a lot of some of the historians on the Criterion were saying that there's some parallels between McCarthy, who was brought down by TV, and McCarthy was he one of the leaders of the
I think so. Yeah, is it McCarthyism to do with all this, and the American ideals again and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy time, honestly. There's so many people in Hollywood refused to name names and then stood up against it, and studios could be shut down if they work with anyone blacklisted. Madness. So, I mean, that's probably why Kazan, isn't as remembered today as others.
Yeah, I mean, because there's just the ripple effects.
Yeah. There's a great story sorry to interrupt you, in Mark Cousin's Story of Film, where he talks to, it was either like the cinema, it was somebody, I can't remember who it was, that worked with Kazan. And he said that when he was up for his honorary Oscar, he wrote him a letter, and he was like, I think it would be a good time to apologize and just kind of, now that this is happening, say that you regret what you did. And apparently he wrote back and he was like, with kindest regards, go F yourself. And that was it. He was just like, I'm not apologizing for what I did.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Which I think tells you a lot about the man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe this podcast will get some people turned back onto this film.
I mean, if you haven't seen it, try and find it out. Yeah, I'm sorry, but try and seek it out and give it a watch.
I bought it at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, 50% off sale right
now. Yeah. I mean, Andy Griffith, my God, dude, I just can't get over him.
Yeah, I can remember my mother-in-law was in town when I watched it the first time. She was like, Andy Griffith, I love him, and she was laughing along to, she was kind of in and out, but laughing along to what he was saying and stuff like that. And I was the other end. I was like, I don't like this guy. Not Andy Griffith as a person, like Lonesome
Yeah,
Rose,
yeah, just the character, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, I've seen interviews with him, and he's just a lovely guy.
Yeah, that was something else they were talking about, was just that it's interesting that this was like his first film, and then his career
was
like completely different. Yeah, he was like America's dad.
Yeah.
And a really wholesome person.
Which just puts it higher in my estimations. You know, it's easy to play a version of yourself, but it's harder to play like the exact opposite. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it shows what a good actor he was.
Yeah, 100%.
You should definitely watch some episodes of the Andy Griffith Show if you can find it. Watch the pilot or something.
Yeah, I'm going to. I might go through maybe like IMDb and just find the highest rated episode.
You know that Ron Howard's in it, right?
I did. Yeah, I had a quick look at just the cast list and stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ron Howard.
Yeah, he's a child. I mean, he plays his son.
Yeah,
so it's like, yeah,
that's crazy.
That's what I always knew Ron Howard from until I guess I started seeing his films that he directed.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I really ever saw him in any other acting role growing up, anyway. But. Yep. I think that might be it for the episode.
I know we could both probably keep talking about it.
Yeah. It's always fun hanging out and talking about movies, dude.
Yeah.
Sundays are the best. So we're going to guess
I think
each of us rated this film.
Yeah, I think this might be the easiest one since Souvenir Part 2.
Yeah.
I mean, 5. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, it's a 5.
Yeah.
And 5 for you.
Yeah. I mean,
5 for both of us.
Yeah.
5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
So good, I put a heart next to it.
Nice. Do you not usually do that?
Only for the special ones. That's my
really.
That's my kind of sign of like I love this film.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I just do it when I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what you're supposed to do, not me.
I mean, you can. That's the great thing about Letterboxd. It's yours.
That's right. That's right.
There's the ad right there. The great thing about Letterboxd is it's yours.
It's yours.
Box the letters the way you want.
I think we're going off
now. We've come to the part of the show where Lewis tells us what we're watching next week.
Yes.
Of course, next week I'll tell you what we're watching, but it's Lewis's pick. What are we watching?
Yeah, so, I mean, I know we've done a lot. We watched Bernie. We watched Hands on a Hard Body, both from small Texas towns. Got me thinking about other places, So the film I have chosen is Paris, Texas, from 1984. Nice. Directed by Wim Wenders. I always want to say it like that. I'm not sure if that's right. I assume it is. A classic that, I hear a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, I always hear people talk about this movie. I've never seen it. I've been through Paris, Texas.
Yeah.
I've been through it a few times.
Yeah. I think I saw it again at school. I can't remember it very much, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my pick for next week.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
Sweet.
Well, folks, I think we've come to the end of our journey. Of course, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Film Church Radio. Individually on our Letterboxd is at Selman Scope and at Walker Lewis 3007. There you can keep up with what we've been watching, see our watch list. And of course, all of our back episodes are streaming on all good podcast platforms. Remember to tell one person about this show this week. And
we're going to say it. We're a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Just got to start with one.
That's right. Next week it'll be 2.
Yeah. Man, pyramid schemes are dangerous. But you know what else is dangerous?
What, baton twirling?
No power. You've got to be a saint to stand off to the power that little box can give you.
Oh, man. The great Walter Matthau.
The one and only.
Yeah, I think that's like one of his only lines in the film, so I'm glad we picked it out.
All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you next Sunday. Don't forget to say your film church prayers.
Amen.
Amen.
Bye, guys.
Bye.